Hey, this is Corey Woods, and you're listening to Herp Herp Hooray. Enjoy the show.
It says here we should work in teams. I tend to think of myself as a one-man wolf pack.
You are about to enter Information Overload, a worldwide transmission with Herp Herp Hooray's featured Breeder of the Week. Here's your host, Jason Rossi.
What's up, world? Welcome back to H3. I'm your host, Jason Rossi. We are streaming live on RossiReptiles.com and, as always, on iTunes. This week's featured Breeder of the Week is here, and he's our second international guest. Corey Woods from CoreyWoods.com is our special guest this week. Corey, welcome to Herp Herp Hooray.
Oh, I'm glad to be here.
Thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Awesome. Well, I was flipping through your birthing records. I got to say, you have a ton of cool projects going on. We'll get into that. But first, tell our listeners the history on the red axanthic ball python.
It was way back when I ended up purchasing a pair of blackbacks from the Sutherlands. They had got in a black striped male from the wild and bred it, and they ended up, producing a clutch out of that. So I bought a pair from them. There was only, I think, if memory serves, because it was a while ago. I think it was back in 98 or 99 that this happened. That I believe that there was 3.1 blackbacks in the clutch, and so I ended up purchasing a pair from them. And in the meantime, they sold out of the project. They sold the original male. They sold the other males in the clutch, and I got the pair. So grew them up. Ended up breeding them together in, I believe it was 2001. And produced the first red axanthics. So, at the time, I was only, I was a small breeder, and, I maybe that year hatched out, 6 clutches or something, and so, you know how it is when you're, it's like, you're like a kid at Christmas, you're looking in these eggs, and it's like, oh my God, what's going on in here? There's something that's not supposed to be in there. So I was all, excited, and, you peek in and you see something, and then it comes out, and it's like, man, this is something I've never seen before. And there was 2 red axanthic males in the clutch. So I ended up phoning up the snake keeper and saying, man, I don't know what happened, but, there's some funky things going on in this clutch. So I took some at the time, digital cameras weren't where they are now, and nobody had cell phones, let alone cell phones with, that were camera phones and all this stuff. So, I go out with like my, 1 megapixel digital camera and take a couple real crappy photos and send them off to everybody, and everybody looked at them, and the pictures were terrible. And everybody looked at them, and they're like, oh, we can't really tell what's going on. So then I thought, okay, I'm going to have to actually sit down, take some nice photographs of them. And so after I took the second set of photographs, I ended up sending them to kind of everybody around for their opinion, and, kind of figured out, hey, this is something new, and, that's kind of how I got into the red axanthic stuff. And then, of course, me telling the snake keeper it came from their, a pair that I got from them that they got from the wild. They ended up buying stuff back from that project, and ended up, they ended up, I think they must have produced a whole bunch of red axanthic stuff by now. But and then there was 2 red axanthic males in the clutch, and Ralph Davis ended up getting one, and I kept one, and kind of went from there. So kind of a little bit of the history, anyway.
That's excellent. It's got to be something else to be able to sell back to breeders such as the ones you just named. That's kind of don't have words for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's always, I'm always looking for new stuff, and, Ralph's a great breeder. I've done, really good with all of the animals I've ever gotten from him. So, I mean, it was, good that, he got animals from me. I ended up getting animals from him, and, I know he's done a lot of stuff with the red axanthics, and, I've done a lot of stuff with the red axanthics, and, the red axanthic gene, it's not for everybody. And, I mean, we've got, you've got albinos and you've got pieds. And even if you don't like snakes, you can look at a pied and you can be like, wow, that's different, And the red axanthics, they're an acquired taste, There's a lot of guys out there that really like them. I really like them. I do a lot of stuff with them. But again, they're not for everybody. And I mean, there's a lot of mutations out there that, we all have our own tastes. We all have our own likes and dislikes. And I mean, I think that's a good thing. I mean, if we were all the same, life would be boring. So.
Well, that pastel lesser het red axanthic sugar male is outstanding, I have to say. That thing is a knockout.
Yeah, and he's nice, and I really like him. And with some of these genes, you just don't know how they're gonna mix, and some of them look really good when they're mixed, and some of them are just kind of okay, but. Yeah, that guy there, he turned out really nice, so I was really happy with that. And, really, back when I got my sugars, I ended up paying a little bit more for them, but I got really, really high white sugars. And so far the sugars I've produced have been really high white, so I've been really happy with that.
So it pays to buy with your eyes.
Yeah.
So what are the characteristics to look out when buying a het red axanthic if someone knows nothing about them?
Well, it's really weird because, I've got, basically my stuff originates from the original red axanthic male produced in 2001. And Ralph Davis got the brother, so he got one of the original males from 2001. And my stuff, my het reds and Ralph's het reds look pretty similar. Now, I know Ozzy Bowids, he got some red axanthic stuff from Ralph. And the stuff that Ozzy produces looks way different than the stuff I produce. And so I'm always getting emails from guys, is this a het red? And I always have to make that disclaimer. If it came from me, this is what mine look like, and if they came from Ozzy, this is what they look like, because it's all the same stuff. But, maybe I took mine and bred it to, darker stuff, and, Ralph has different animals, and he's bred it to different things, and Ozzy's got different animals, and he's bred it to different things, and, the mutations kind of changed a little bit, from the different breeders that have worked with it. So my animals, my het reds that I produce, they've got a well-defined black stripe, a really, really busy side pattern, and some of the het reds, they do have a slight kind of gold stripe down the black stripe on their back. But the het reds that Ozzy typically produces, they've got a black stripe, but a very reduced side pattern, and so sometimes that kind of throws people off because they're all het reds, but mine look different than some of the other ones out there, and it's just because we've bred it to all different stuff. And it's kind of like if you were to have really dark Mojaves or really light Lessers, we've all bred the stuff to different animals, and they've all picked up different traits from the different females we've used. So yeah, sometimes it's hard to define just because there's different looks from different people's animals.
All right, well, I got to say, and you probably already know this, but that pastel red axanthic dot matrix is sick, man. That's got something going on there, huh?
And that's, again, you take these animals and you breed it to different females, and, you think all this stuff is normal. And then it's like, you could have yellow bellies in your collection, you could have sparks, all of this very subtle stuff that when you combine it with another trait, it's like, something wacky comes out. And, the dot matrix stuff, it's in my collection, but I can't tell you where or how. I don't know if it's a granite gene mixed in with something. I know I can produce them, and I know, I bred 2 pastel red axanthic dot matrix animals together, and the animals from them are more extreme than the parents. So it's definitely there. I've produced it from multiple clutches, but I don't know how or why or where. So it's something I got to figure out. And I've hatched out a few different things out of the red axanthic gene. I've got another animal that it's a het red, but it almost looks like your classic, jungle. And I'm breeding him to see if he's genetic. So far, I haven't. I only bred him to 3 females last year, and none of those females went. So I'm going to breed him to 5 females this year and see if maybe I can figure something out, with him. But yeah, you just kind of the more animals you have, the more wacky stuff you start seeing over time. And I know that's we just have you can have funky stuff in your collection and you don't know it. So yeah, with the dot matrix stuff, I need to figure need to figure that gene out a little bit more, but I know that I really like them. So.
Well, granite was the first thing that came to my mind when I saw it. I was like, yep, that looks like it has some granite, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, and the first ones that I produced back in 2009, I still have those, the parents of those babies here. And the original parents of the dot matrix animals, to me they look like, they just look like it was from a pastel het red to a pastel het red breeding through a couple different clutches. And the pastel het red parents, they look just like regular old pastel het reds. There's nothing different or strange about them. But they've produced some different looking babies. So I got to figure them out a little bit more. This stuff it keeps your interest. It makes things exciting when you hatch out stuff, and it's like, whoa, how did that happen?
Well, the red axanthic G-stripe, they're pretty sweet. Do the silvers stay like that throughout adulthood? They
are. Again, with everything, the animals change over time. But the red axanthic G-stripes, yes, they still do look quite nice as adults. The one female from a couple years ago, she's quite big now. She's about 1,800 grams, and I'm going to try breeding her this year. So we'll see what comes out of that. But yeah, when we're breeding these animals, sometimes you can kind of expect what's going to hatch out. If you breed an albino to a pied, you think, okay, eventually, I should get albino pieds, and eventually you do. To me, some of this stuff, it just really doesn't make sense. Why do you get a leucistic from a lesser to lesser breeding or lesser to Mojave? To me, that doesn't make sense. It's really neat that it does that, but to me, just one of those things where it's like, it kind of boggles the mind. And again, with the, why is a genetic stripe het red, why is it almost patternless? To me, if you take an animal that's striped and breed it to an animal that's got a really busy pattern, why do you get an almost patternless animal? It's just, some of these genes, when combined, they do what you think they're going to do, and then other genes, they do kind of the opposite of what you think they're going to do. So
you're going to throw the super pastel G-stripe at her, or are you going to go a different direction with that?
Well, what I've done, I've got another gene that, for now, I'm calling it mutation X. And that's a gene, again, that originated out of, I bred a genetic stripe male to a het red female, and this really wacky baby hatched out. And initially, he had a question mark on his card because I honestly didn't know what was going on. And it ended up that weird-looking baby, he's genetic. I've produced more of him. I'm calling the gene mutation X, and I've bred a mutation X genetic stripe male to the red axanthic genetic stripe female. So that clutch could be interesting, if, the female does, produce eggs. And, it'll be kind of interesting to see what's in that breeding. But for other breedings, I am breeding my super pastel genetic stripe males to some, genetic stripe het red females and, stuff like that, just to try and, eventually down the line, maybe it'll be, a patternless yellow snake.
Which would be pretty sweet.
Yeah.
So do you think you hit the het red pied?
I don't know. That's the thing when you produce, animals that people haven't seen before, or it hasn't been done before, or if it has been done, pictures haven't been posted. Because there's been a lot of stuff done by a lot of people. It's just people don't always post pictures of everything. So, I've produced 3 pieds from, het red, het pied to het red, het pied, or to het pied, and I do have 3 pieds, and I've produced a lot of pieds over the years, and I've seen a lot of variation in the pieds, and that's why I can't really say, one way or another if I've done the pied het red. They are different looking pieds, but I think I've produced about 100 pieds over, the last 5 years, and, when you start seeing a large group of animals, you see a high variety in those animals, and sometimes the more animals you see, the more confusing things are. If you'd only produced, 4 pieds, you might be able to say, okay, this is different than the other 4 I've produced, and this has got to be the pied het red. But when you've produced 100 animals, and it's like, oh man, is this just a regular pied but extreme pattern, or is it the cross? And when I sell stuff, I like to be 100%. This is exactly what it is. I don't like selling something to somebody and it coming back and it's like it wasn't what you sold, and I like to be 100% on stuff. And sometimes mistakes are made, and that's kind of the true test of a breeder. It's not how many good transactions you've had. It's how you deal with the bad ones. And so I really do try very hard to send out stuff that I know is 100%. And that's why, I've had a couple guys inquire about these pied het reds, and obviously if they are pied het reds, I want to keep them for my own breeding, but I have had people want to buy them. And I can't sell them because I'm not 100% on them.
So do you find that you're keeping a lot of stuff because you can't tell if exactly what it is? I do keep a lot of stuff. I keep about 100 females back a year to grow up. And I find that I'm always, as my genetic stripe females, turn 3 years old, okay, now if I kept back 10 genetic stripe females, now I can sell 10 het genetic stripe females. And so you're always kind of going through the collection, and, some stuff you have, you really like it. Other stuff you have, you think, I just, maybe this is a project I could, let somebody else enjoy. So, but yeah, I end up keeping back about 100 females a year and growing them up, and then you kind of decide when they're breeder size. Sometimes, I have a habit of keeping back a lot of stuff, and so sometimes you go through and, you start producing, animals for a project you want, and you start, writing keep on all the cards of the females you want to hold back, and you kind of lose track of how many you keep. So I'll give you an example. Over the last couple of years, I've produced a few clutches from pied to orange ghost and pied to pastel orange ghost. And so I've produced quite a few
double head orange ghost pieds and pastel double head orange ghost pieds. Well, back in the summer, I was going through all the female holdbacks. I had held back 19 double head orange ghost pied females, and I just, when you see the 19, it's like, oh, maybe I don't need 19. Maybe I can cut it down to 15. So I ended up selling 4 of them. But sometimes you just, as a breeder, you just keep on the cards, and then after time you have to go back. And I also did that with the chocolate project. The chocolate project, something new I'm in. I ended up keeping back 20 chocolate females. And it's like, okay, maybe I can cut down, I think I cut it down to around 14 females. So, because obviously, you want to produce the animals that you want to produce. I only work with animals that I like, and so I want to produce the animals that I like, but also, it is a business. You do want to sell animals as well, and so sometimes you can decide, okay, I don't need that many females. I can sell a couple chocolate females, or I can sell a couple double het females, and kind of help out at the bottom line at the end of the year.
Sounds like a good model to work from.
Yeah.
All right, well, going back to the het red pieds, even the het red het pieds are ridiculous looking, aren't they?
Yes, there's quite a few ringers in the het red het pieds. I'd say about 80% of the het red het pieds are ringers. So they are quite quite variable in that gene, but there's a lot of ringers, and I've also seen that in the in the black pastel het pieds and the cine het pieds. There seems to be a lot of ringers in those animals as well. So I think I need to look at quite a few pictures of some cine pieds and black pastel pieds to see how they compare to the pieds that I've produced. And I don't work with the cinnamon gene. I don't work with the black pastel gene. So I get a lot of questions about the onyx animals and related crosses and stuff with that. And I really can't answer those questions because I don't have the cinnies or the black pastels. But it is a gene that is closely related. It is a gene that I'm assuming is allelic. And so I do need to look at some of those cinnamon pieds to see how they compare to these pieds that I've produced that may be het reds.
Well, you did hit the ivory het red, didn't you?
I believe so. I've produced, I've produced a few ivories. I've produced some lesser ivories, some pastel ivories, and I believe I hit the het red ivory. When you can compare it to other animals, and when you can say, okay, it's not a, it's not a pastel ivory, it's not a regular ivory, it's not a lesser ivory. The only other option is, okay, it's got to be a het red ivory. But again, it's one of those things where it's a male. I'm keeping him. I'm going to grow him up and breed him just to confirm it. But I believe that I have hit the ivory het red.
Well, congrats on that. So how is the pastel het red champ coloring up?
The pastel het red champagnes, I've got some from a couple years ago. They're growing up. I'm breeding them this year. I've got some from last year, and again some from this year. I find that the champagne het red, I've seen a lot of variability in the champagne gene, and I have, a few years ago I did breed champagne to red axanthic, and in that clutch, they're all champagne het reds. And so you can, definitively say, okay, these are what they are. But there was 3 champagne het reds in that clutch, and all 3 of them were different. One was really dark, one was really light, there was one with a really busy pattern, and all 3 of them were completely different. full spectrum. And so I find with the Champagne Het Reds, they can be a little difficult to tell if you're not breeding it to the homozygous red Axanthic. Now with the Pastel Champagne Het Red, it is different enough compared to a Pastel Champagne that I can tell them right away. And so I do have animals here that I will be breeding. I have produced the red Axanthic Champagnes, the Pastel red Axanthic Champagnes, Pin Champagne red Axanthics. Those animals are all very, very nice. Again, with the Champagnes, they're kind of an acquired taste. A lot of people like them. Some people don't like them. But the red Axanthic Champagne, it's one of my favorite animals. And I need to produce more of them. And that's an animal that you just don't care if it sells. I like them. I want them here. I like looking at them. I'd like to have 20 of them. So, they're in person. They're really nice, and that's kind of one of the unfortunate things about living in Canada. With the whole CITES restrictions and stuff. If I lived in the States, I could take this stuff to the Chicago show or the down to the Daytona show and display it, but with the whole CITES restrictions, I can't just pack stuff up and drive to a show. You got to ship it down. If it doesn't sell, you got to have somebody take it back to their place, pull CITES, ship it back to you. It can be kind of a nightmare. So, some of this stuff you just need to see in person to appreciate it, and there's a lot of Americans out there that like this stuff, and it would be really neat if they could see it in person.
Well, clutch number 11, the Pastel Pin Champ, is it looking like he's carrying the Het Red Axanthic gene?
Pastel Pin Champ. Oh, let me go down and I'll have a look at that clutch. You said that was clutch 11?
Yes, sir, it was. I was just flipping through earlier.
Yeah. Let me go down and I'll go in the baby room here and I'll have a look.
All right. Well, we get there. How about that Mimosa Het Red Axanthic? I think is awesome as well.
Yeah, and that thing is coloring up, and it's really, really bright orange now. Yeah, I really like him.
Anything Mimosa?
Yeah. Okay. So you're talking clutch 11. So that was from a Pastel Pin Champagne Het Red to a Super Pastel Caramel. So that the male in there, he is a Pastel Pin Champagne Het Red Het Caramel.
A lot going on with that
guy. Both of them, because there was two males in the clutch. The other male in the clutch was a Pastel Champagne. They both look really nice. They're growing quite well. When they hatched out, they came from small eggs. I have had good luck getting eggs out of caramel females. I've had 3 clutches from caramel females. And the eggs I find are a little bit smaller, and the babies hatch out. But these guys have been eating really well, and I look forward to down the line producing some champagne caramels and different champagne caramel crosses. Because I really like the caramel gene. It is kind of unfortunate that you do get kinking in the caramels. And, there is some fertility issues with the caramel females. I've had good luck with my caramel females here. I started out with hets and produced possible hets and got outcrossed caramels in and bred them to the possible hets. And I've really tried to outcross the caramel stuff to make it stronger. And I think that kind of shows with being able to get 3 clutches from caramel females so far. But getting back to the champagne caramel, it's one of the projects I want to see. I was really surprised by the look of the Pastel red Axanthic caramel male I produced a couple years ago. He was a really neat-looking baby. He's a phenomenal-looking adult. And so there's a lot of stuff we can do with the caramel gene. You just kind of cross your fingers and hope that when you do get something neat in the egg, that it's not kinked, because as I say, it is something with the gene. I've been quite lucky since I've outcrossed my caramel stuff that I produce about 10-15% kinked, which is obviously 0% kinked would be ideal. But I know that's far lower than what some of the other averages of some of the other breeders are producing as far as kinked caramels go. Been quite lucky in that department.
What temps do you incubate at?
I incubate at 90. I have done, everybody kind of has their own theories. Some guys say if you incubate at 87 degrees, there's less kinked. I've also heard that if you keep your females cooler, there's less kinking. I keep my animals hot. All of the animals are kept the same. All of the eggs are incubated the same. I've got a hot spot at 96 Fahrenheit during the day. At night for breeding, right now they're dropping down to 75 Fahrenheit on the heat tape. And so as things progress, February it'll be 80 degrees on the heat tape at night, still 96 Fahrenheit during the day. March it'll be 85. April we're back to 96 day and night. And I keep my animals a little bit hotter than what some guys do, and I incubate at 90 Fahrenheit. And I find with the caramels, in my honest opinion, temperature means nothing. Keep them hot, keep them cool, doesn't matter. I think when it comes down to kinked, caramel babies, it all comes down to, are you breeding brother, sister, father, daughter, or are you outcrossing your stock? Because, I know guys that have, incubated 87 degrees, and 7 out of 10 caramels are kinked. And I think it all comes down to, you got to do that outcrossing. That's the key to the caramels.
So you say that outcrossing for fertility, do you wait for a certain weight on the females for caramels, or are they strictly across the board, straight, all a certain weight?
They're just all they're the same size as all the other, females. Obviously you don't want to breed a real small female. You don't want to breed a 15-month, 1,000-gram female. I mean, that's not something, you want to do with anything, let alone, the caramels. But, I like my females here. For me, perfect breeder weight for my stuff. Anywhere from 2,200 to 2,800 grams. And I find for the technique I use here and, the climate we have, just what works for me is, at least 3 years old, 22 to 2,800 grams. If a female is real big, if she's an early May baby and she's now, it's the breeding season, it's 2 winters later, she's 1,800, 2,000 grams because she is an early baby. I will breed a female that's, 20, 22, 24 months old. But I find even when doing that, maybe 1 out of 10 females that are in those conditions will, produce eggs. So, again, it's, you're chucking in males with younger females, and, you really don't expect much out of them anyway, so a lot of times I don't even try. I find with the, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8-year-old females that are 22, 2,800 grams, I range pretty much 50% of the females that breed produce eggs. And, I say that to guys, and, I always get a different response from people, and, you always have that one guy where, I bred 6 females and got 6 clutches. And you say, okay, we'll breed 60 females, and, if you get 60 clutches, I want to know what you're doing, because it's not what I'm doing. But I produce around 50%. And I find, again, that, for the caramel females, that, they're right in there. I'm breeding my 09 pastel caramel females. They're 2,000, 2,500 grams. And I find that guys, I've been in the industry for a while, and I always get these guys that want if you've got breeder females for sale, as you're rotating your stock, if you've got het genetic stripes or het albinos, they always want to buy the biggest ones. They always want, they want the 5,000 gram females. And, those females are great. They're big. They'll produce big clutches. The largest clutch I've ever had is 16 eggs out of a 4,800 gram female. But she gave me 16 eggs and then didn't go for 4 years. And so you can have a 2,500 gram female give you 7 eggs, but she'll do that, 3 years in a row. So I find it's not always the biggest females are the best producers. I find for my stuff here, plus or minus, 2,500 gram range. So.
And on average, what are you seeing for clutch sizes?
It's all over the board. We had a really warm winter here up here in Ontario, Canada. My wife and I were down in Costa Rica in March of 2012, and when we actually got back to Ontario, it was warmer here in Ontario than what it was in Costa Rica. And we found this year that weather, it was very warm winter, not a lot of snow. It was very warm in March. This year I got a higher than normal percentage of slugs this year. And you can kind of see that as reflected on my birthing record. Guys will phone me up and say, "Oh my God, you're producing a lot of slugs." Well, I'm not lying on my birthing record. I'm honest. I put all the stuff up there. It'd be easy just to take those slugs and throw them in the garbage and not put that clutch up on the incubator. But, that's, I'm not looking to hide the stuff here. So, but yeah, I found this year was a little bit different year. Production was a little bit down. Production was about 6 weeks late. And I did get a higher than the normal slug ratio. But I find in, a good year, where, it's a cold winter, you get lots of snow, kind of your ideal conditions for the type of breeding that I'm used to here. And, obviously the way they breed ball pythons in Texas is a lot different than what we do up here in Canada. But, for the climate we have and what I'm used to doing, on a good season where everything's right, the average is 6 to 7 eggs is good. I've got a lot of, older females here that, they can give you 10, 11, 12 eggs, no problem. And then, you've always got that one female that will be super big and, give you 3 eggs. And you think, what happened? What went wrong? Why did a 2,800 gram female give me 3 eggs? But then you'll have a 2,500 gram female give you 9 eggs. And again, you think, where did all of these eggs come from?
Well, it looks like we're getting some of that snow. We had a pretty good flurry here today. We're here in upstate New York. How about you up there? Yes, it was actually, below freezing here. It was about -4 Celsius. We did get some it was blowing snow today. We're supposed to, you guys pretty much get the same weather that we do. We're supposed to be warm, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. It's supposed to be 15 Celsius. I'm not sure what that is in Fahrenheit. It's probably about 65 Fahrenheit. So, yeah, it's just weather's kind of all over the place. But right now, with the balls, they're kind of cooling. I am throwing pairs together. I have noticed as far as early pairings go, males are actually breeding quite well right now. Typically, for me, I do get the odd early breeding here or there, but my main breeding season is, pretty much the last week of January and then February, March, April. Usually, you chuck stuff together in November, December, and, maybe you get, a couple, 2 or 3 males out of 10 will breed. I'm having like 8 or 9 males out of 10 breeding right now, and so maybe,
2012 was a late season, maybe 2013 will be an early season. Who knows? It's all up pretty much to the weatherman, I find.
Well, let's hope the Tofino is one of those males. That's a pretty awesome project. What was your take on that when you found out they were compatible with albinos?
Well, I bought my Tofino male from Peter Williams in 2011. That year, I believe he produced 4 or 5 Tofinos. I always, because, I bought my animal from Peter Williams, he was totally upfront, he bred he proved out a possible het Toffee, bred it to a het albino, produced Tofinos. He was pretty upfront and honest, this is what I did, this is how it happened, with the Tofinos, we're still trying to figure out how it is inherited. One would think that, a Tofino has a Toffee gene and it has an albino gene, and, we should figure that out. I'm just waiting for the animals to color up. I did have a clutch of 6 eggs from Tofino to albino, and they were all as expected. They hatched out. They were albino-looking snakes. So I need to let them mature for a couple months to see. There was 2.4 in the clutch. So I want to see, out of 6 eggs, if any of them are albino, it means, okay, the Tofino has a Toffee gene and it has an albino gene, and that's how it's inherited. Otherwise maybe something else funky is going on. Maybe the Toffee gene combines with the albino gene, and who knows what, maybe it could be some type of weird platy-daddy kind of scenario with that animal, but we just got to wait and see. Logic would kind of dictate it does have one Toffee gene and one albino gene. But, my Tofino male, he's an amazing-looking male. The lavender albino people hate me, but my Tofino looks way better than my lavender albino stuff. And, I love lavender albinos. And I've done a lot of crosses with the lavender albinos. I've produced pastel lavenders this year, lavenders, a bunch of different lavender crosses into the G-stripes, into the pieds. I'm doing a lot with the lavender stuff, but my Tofino male blows my lavender albino stuff away. So, but don't tell any of the lavender people. They'll get all fired up. So.
We don't want that now, do we?
Yeah. But I really like my Tofino male. He's a phenomenal looking male. I am trying to do a bunch of different crosses with him this year as well. Not just into the albino stuff. I want to breed him into some other stuff as well. And I've got some pin champagne het albino females that were produced in 2010. So they're now going to be, for the 2013 season, they're going to be now 3 years old. And so the Tofino male has bred these 2 pin champagne het albino females. So, there's 2 females. If I do 50% of the females that breed produce eggs, hopefully that means one of these 2 females is going to go. You just never know, but, maybe we'll see some Tofino champagnes or some, pinstripe Tofino different crosses, So that'll be interesting. But again, with the, I find that people, they want instant gratification. They like the dominant stuff, the co-dominant stuff. They want stuff to hatch out right away. And I find with the Tofino stuff and the candy and toffees, with it hatching out as an albino, guys don't want to wait 6 months to have a really cool looking animal. They want, they want something right away that they can go, wow, right out of the egg. And I don't know if that's one of the downfalls of the whole Tofino project. I don't know if that's one of the downfalls or if it's people don't like the originator of the gene. I don't know what it is, but I still really like the Tofino stuff.
Where did that gene come from?
Craig Stewart. He bought toffee male, and Pete Call got his candy male. They both got him at the same time. They both came from Ian Grzinski. I hate pronouncing his last name, because I always screw it up. But
from Outback.
Yeah, they both got those animals, at the same time, and both proved them genetic. And the candy toffee, I think, is the same thing. Just different people working with them. I think the candies and the toffees are equally nice looking. But yeah, it's an interesting gene.
Well, I gotta say, man, that lesser caramel, I love the coloration on that one.
Yeah.
What's that animal growing like?
He's growing up quite nicely. I gotta take more pictures of him, and just he's quite nice. It's again with the the lesser caramels. I know Mark and Kim Bell have been working with the caramels for a very long time. They've been working with the butters for a very long time. So they've got to have butter caramels, but I've never seen pictures of one. So if they're listening to, if they're listening to this interview, if the Bells could maybe email me pictures of some butter caramels, I'd really like to see how they compare to the lesser caramel male that I produced this year. He was produced from a caramel female, a lesser het caramel male to a caramel female. There was only one lesser caramel in the egg. It was a male, because it was a smaller egg from a caramel female. He was a little bit smaller, but he's eating little rat pups every week, and so he's getting big. He's had a few sheds, and I really do need to take some new photographs of him, because he looks really nice.
I hope the Bells are listening too, but I know that they're super busy, because I called them quite a few times and I can't get them to come on the show because they're so busy. So
yeah, no,
might have to email them.
Yeah, and if I had all the animals that they had, I'd be way. I'm busy now, so I can only imagine how busy they are. But hopefully, if they are listening, or if somebody that talks to them on a regular basis is listening, tell them that Corey Woods wants see some pictures of some butter caramels.
Shoot, I might just message him for you.
Yeah, I could always email Kim myself, but yeah.
All right, so did we miss anything cool that you produced this year that we didn't touch on yet?
I guess it's all what you want to talk about on the show this time around. I really like my Mutation X stuff. I'm doing quite a few crosses with that. I've produced some genetic stripe Mutation X and some pastel Mutation X's this year, and that gene it's a really neat gene. I really like how it's combining with different animals. It's still a gene. The Mutation X stuff, I still haven't figured it out. And I mean, they have, every one of them is different. Some of the Mutation X stuff, you look at it and it looks like it's got yellow belly in it. Other stuff, other ones they have like a Mojave kind of pattern, and guys come over and it's like, oh, this one's kind of vanilla or fire-ish, and other guys come over and they say, oh, this looks kind of desert. This one looks kind of desertish. And so, with the whole desert gene and females not producing and that whole kind of, thing going on, I'm not selling any of the Mutation X stuff for two reasons. One, I want to make sure first and foremost that females produce viable, healthy eggs and those eggs hatch. I don't want to sell a project and females, are infertile and die when bred. So I need to make sure if females are fertile before I sell the project, and B, I want to see if there's a super. Even if there's not a super, it's still a really neat gene. It's still done some really nice, neat stuff. I even had some friends over yesterday, and I was showing them some of the pastel Mutation X stuff, and they're like, man, you got to post pictures of this stuff. People won't believe how bright they are, and you know how it goes with pictures. The animals are just never as intense as what they are in person in a photograph. But, I there's pictures posted on the birthing record of all this stuff. I haven't taken a lot of pictures and posted them on different websites and stuff, but it is a gene that's really neat. And, hopefully there's some wacky super, but if not, the animals just on their own are really, really nice. And I really hope females produce because, you just hate seeing, I really like the desert stuff. I mean, I think they're phenomenal-looking animals. But it's just so unfortunate, all of the female issues, and they slug out, they die. It's it's just a real shame with the whole desert stuff. So yeah, it's got to figure that project out a little more, and I think as the different breeders start developing new mutations and different mutations, we all got to make sure that these animals are healthy. They 100% produce. There's no fertility issues. I think going forward we have to make sure everything's 100%.
So what pairing are you? What pairing are you excited for this season? If you had to pick just one.
Just one?
Yeah, you can't pick one, but
Yeah. That would be a really, really tough. That would be a really, really tough call. I am working with, several new genes this year. I've got some citrus puma males breeding this year. I've got a suma male breeding this year, and so I'm really, excited to, produce some puma stuff and hopefully some mahogany crosses, and I'm just really excited for, even. I'm going to be doing a lot of red xanthic stuff this year, and I'm always excited to see different crosses of that. I'm trying to do some different champagne crosses and stuff, and with some of my 3 and 4 and 5 gene champagne males. But yeah, to put it on one different cross, I don't know. I'd be hard pressed to do that because as I say, everything that I have here, I work with it because I like it. And, guys always call me up and say, what animal should I buy? And I always say, buy the animal you like. You're the one that's got to look at it and feed it and clean it. And, just because I like it doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to like it. So, I like everything I have in my collection. And I don't know. I'm really excited to see all of it. So.
This may be an easier question then.
Yeah.
What is the next gene you'll be adding then that you don't already have?
Well, that'll be a tough call. I haven't got it yet, and I don't like to say and jinx myself and say stuff before I have stuff, but I did just pick up a super pastel puzzle male from Sean at EBN.
Awesome.
And so the puzzle gene's a new gene that I've added here. And I do have, I haven't finalized my order yet with Amir, but I do have another order coming up from Amir, and I'm sure there'll be some new stuff in there. Because that's who I got my citrus puma males from and my suma male from, obviously. But yeah, there's some exciting stuff in the future, and there's some exciting stuff that I'm not even working with. I mean, there's a lot of great genes out there. There's a lot of great breeders out there, a lot of great people. So yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of good projects going to be, and a lot of good genes produced this year, and I'm excited to see all of it. So yeah.
So do you vend any expos up there in Canada?
I do. I kind of pick and choose what expos that I go to. There's about 5 expos in Toronto a year. I think I vend at maybe 3 of them. I do the Red Deer Alberta show out it's usually the weekend before the Daytona show. So I'm usually out in Alberta, Canada, and vending in some local shows around. There's, the Kitchener Expo that's only about half an hour from my house, and then, Toronto's about an hour away. So I do those shows. I've vended in Ottawa, Ontario before. I've also vended in Montreal, Quebec. There's also a show that I've always wanted to get to, but I've never had the chance. There's two shows I'd actually like to go to. There's a show out in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and there's also a show out in Halifax, Nova Scotia. I haven't been to either of those, but they are on my list of shows to try in the future. So, and the thing with shows, the market's always changing, and, I find now, used to be 10 years ago, guys went to shows to buy their stuff, the internet was there. Not a lot of guys were on the internet. There weren't a lot of forums to go to. There wasn't Facebook. There wasn't all that stuff. So, you wanted to see this stuff in person. You had to go to a show. Where I find now, there's so many forums. There's so many classifieds. Everybody's all over Facebook, and there's pictures everywhere. I find, people are still buying stuff, but they're not necessarily buying it at shows. They'll see a picture on Facebook, and then they'll contact you. Oh my God, I want to buy that animal, or I want into that project. So, things are definitely changing as far as a show perspective goes. But I still do a lot of shows. It still is really important to go out there and meet people, and view their animals, and because we all, if you just go by, the way somebody is on the internet. It could be the right impression, but it could be the wrong impression as well. So good and bad. So yeah. But shows are definitely important.
Outstanding. Well, I ask everyone that comes on the show this next question. You're from a free nation. What's your take on America's war on reptile keepers?
Well, it's, obviously, culturally, Canada and the U.S., are two very different, nations. We've got, very different climates. At one time, we all came off the same ships. 1600s, we were all coming, from across the pond, in various different countries. And, we all basically came and then spread out. So, at one time, 400 years ago, Canadians, Americans, we were all on the same ships coming to the New World. So, it is a very different culture down in the States compared to Canada. And I find that, people are afraid of snakes up here, but I don't know if we're just maybe, more laid back, or people maybe don't care as much. I don't know what it is. And, I'd hate to say something like that, and then, the people up here start, trying to ban, reptiles and start vilifying the keepers. And, I kept Burmese pythons years ago. I bred Burms, late 90s, early 2000s. I love Burmese pythons. And, they're just, the Burmese python's been vilified. The keepers have been vilified. And it's really a shame. But, I can, if people are already afraid of snakes, and now they're afraid that if they step out of their, out their front door in the Everglades, and, their kids might get eaten by a snake, obviously as reptile keepers we know, these Burmese pythons aren't, chasing down kids and eating them. That's just silly. But, for the people that are afraid of snakes, that think a corn snake is going to, kill their, 8-year-old child, it really does instill fear when you say, okay, these snakes are loose in the Everglades and you should be afraid to go out of your home. But, I am, so I can kind of see it from both sides of the fence here. But I don't agree with breed-specific bans. Up here in Ontario, the pit bulls have been banned. So you can't import pit bulls. You can't own them. I think the ban came in around 2008. And, obviously it's not the breed, it's the owner. And it doesn't matter what dog you have. If you abuse it, whether it be a Rottweiler, a German Shepherd, a Yellow Lab, a Yorkie Terrier, whatever. If you abuse that dog, you can create an angry, hateful animal. And so I don't agree with breed-specific, bans. You should punish the owners, not the breed. And that's exactly how I feel with the whole snake bans, whether it, up here in Ontario, there are a lot of municipal bans as far as boas and pythons go. A lot of these bans go back to the 70s. And, back then people weren't, boas and pythons weren't around as much. People, again, it was a foreign thing. To them it would, I'm sure back in the day it was like saying, hey, should people own elephants? And, obviously, an elephant isn't for everybody. So, back in the 70s when everybody thought, okay, a python was a reticulated python that got 30 feet and was going to eat children, they obviously went in there and banned them, and they just said no boas and pythons. We know now, there's a lot of small boas and pythons that make great pets, Obviously a Kenyan sand boa, they make a great pet. Rosy boa, great pet. Ball pythons, great pet. So, I don't agree with breed-specific bans, and it kind of seems up here in Ontario, a lot of municipalities are actually going the opposite way, where people are going to their local councils, city councils, municipal councils, and saying, hey, I have snakes. They're small. I've got a ball python. It's not going to hurt you. It's a very popular pet. They bring a lot of literature, and they're actually, a lot of work still needs to be done. But up here, it seems that bans are going the other way. They're taking it from, no boas, no pythons, to okay, anything under, 10 feet is okay. Anything over 10 feet you can't have. I've also seen it where, you can't have anything over 6 feet. But if you do, you can still have a Burmese python, but it has to be microchipped. You have to register it with the city. There's a licensing program. So I've seen both ways done. But I think it's a real shame of what's going on in the States. And there's a bunch of different states like Ohio and stuff that are I haven't really followed what's going on in Ohio. I don't know if that ban has been overturned because of the knee-jerk reaction to all of those animals getting loose from the roadside zoo. But I think it's a real shame of what's going on, and I really hope that as young people who are interested in reptiles, as they going forward, we really need a lot of people to start getting into local municipal councils, city councils. Get involved with your local politics, because really, if you want change to happen, you do have to get involved politically, and you need to start standing up for your rights and start doing it the right way, not just looking like a crazy person yelling at people and sending out nasty emails. You got to get involved. You got to educate people. Start running for your local councils, and hopefully going forward it'll be a slow change, but hopefully things get better and not worse.
You have to be proactive in the community.
Yes, definitely.
Well, I heard that you're an activist or you're non-active, so you choose.
Yes. And I know for myself, I am a counselor with our local township. And so I am involved, with local politics. And so, that's what I'm doing, to help educate people, in in my area. Being a counselor, being in the a politician and with the local township here, I go to these municipal conferences and I talk to various mayors, and the question always comes up, what do you do? And it's like, I breed boas and pythons for color and pattern, and I ship them all over the world. And usually they look at me like I have 3 heads, and then they get talking about it, and it's I was talking to a mayor the other day, and he keeps he's got some eastern box turtles, and it's like this is really neat. You've got another guy here that he's had a box turtle for 20 years. He doesn't go on the forums. He doesn't do anything. He's not on any reptile sites. But it's a mayor that's got reptiles, and it's like this is really cool. And you start building relationships, and you start meeting these people, talking to these people, and then down the line when you have those relationships, if a mayor that you've known, or counselor that you've known for a while, they decide in their township they want to maybe look at banning stuff, you can call them up and saying, hey, remember me, we chat, I've got the reptiles, and maybe we can sit down and I can educate you on different stuff, and maybe we can come to a solution with the the restrictions, and work something out that's beneficial for everybody.
I'll have to say that was an outstanding answer to that question. A lot of people say it's a hard one, but seems like you have all the right answers.
Oh, well, thank you.
Well, is there anything else you would like to add in closing before we end this transmission?
I don't know. I would actually like to thank you for this opportunity to actually come on the show and be a part of it. And thank you for the readers for if they've actually made it through. We've been on the phone here for about an hour, so if they've listened to my ramblings for an hour, well, congratulations to them too. But definitely thank you for the opportunity, and hopefully we can do this again.
Well, I appreciate it, sir, and I've been contacted, and I have people telling me they want longer shows, so I don't think there's going to be a problem with that. Okay, good. Awesome. Well, thank you again, sir. Okay, well, thank you. All right, be sure to check out Corey's website, CoreyWoods.com. All right, that's going to do it for this week's episode of Her Per Parade. Don't forget to subscribe and comment in iTunes. And as always, we're streaming live on RossiReptiles.com. Her Per Parade, out.
Hey, everybody, it's Ralph Davis from Ralph Davis Reptiles. You're listening to Jason Rossi of Her Per Parade. Ralph Davis, out.